The flood you were never meant to see. They told you XRP was dead. They told you XLM was a relic. They told you institutions would never touch utility tokens with legal baggage. But they lied. Because while the world was distracted by ETFs and Bitcoin spot approvals, BlackRock was moving in silence, not chasing hype, not grabbing headlines, but doing what they always do, taking quiet control of the infrastructure before anyone realizes it's valuable. You think BlackRock doesn't see what's coming? They see it clearer than anyone. They see the collapse of outdated payment systems, the rise of tokenized assets, the pressure from central banks, the coming wave of regulatory clarity. And they know exactly which protocols are ready to replace the old world. XRP and XLM, built for compliance, built for speed, built for global interoperability. Ignored by the public, tracked by the giants. This isn't theory. This is execution. BlackRock isn't buying hype coins. They're aligning with rails, with real-world utility, with the very foundations of the new financial system. So here's what no one is saying out loud. The flood is already forming. The pipes are laid. The liquidity is waiting. And once they turn the tap, everything changes. No warning, no second chance. Just a wave of capital that rewrites the rules overnight. So if you're holding XRP or XLM, or if you finally realize this isn't just another bull run but a global reshuffle in disguise, then lock in now. Like, share and stay to the end. Because by the time this goes mainstream, BlackRock will already be in, and most of the world will already be priced out. BlackRock doesn't enter markets. It absorbs them. Let's make something very clear. BlackRock is not an investor. It's an engine, and when it moves into a market, it doesn't participate, consumes. This is the most powerful financial institution on Earth, managing over $10 trillion in assets, tied to governments, pension funds, defense contracts, energy grids, central banks, and now, quietly, digital assets. They don't buy in. They build underneath. They don't tweet. They restructure ecosystems in silence. So when BlackRock steps into the crypto world, it's not because they're late. It's because the conditions are finally right for takeover. And if you think they're here for a few Bitcoin ETFs and some Ethereum exposure, you haven't been paying attention. Because the real game isn't spot ETFs, the settlement rails, tokenized bonds, programmable money, and that's where XRP and XLM enter the picture. The real strategy behind the curtain. While the public was obsessing over meme coins and 10x pumps, BlackRock was doing what it always does, filing silent trusts for digital assets under obscure names, investing in firms building blockchain infrastructure, advising central banks on tokenization frameworks, working with regulators to shape policy from the inside. They weren't guessing, they were positioning. And behind the scenes, two protocols kept showing up again and again in pilot programs, research papers, and government task forces. XRP and XLM. Why? Because both are ISO 20022 compliant. Both are built for real-time, low-cost cross-border value transfer. And both have already partnered with governments, NGOs, central banks, and institutional corridors. BlackRock doesn't care about the noise. It cares about the rails that will survive regulation and scale globally. This isn't a bet. It's a blueprint. XRP is not a moonshot. XLM is not a trend. They are infrastructure, and BlackRock understands infrastructure better than anyone. Why do you think they acquired stakes in companies tied to energy, defense, cloud computing, even water? Because real power lives beneath the surface. And in the digital financial system that's forming right now, silently, globally, XRP and XLM aren't speculative plays. They're the foundation blocks. BlackRock doesn't need to shout about its involvement. They'll let others do the speculating. They'll wait until the market is distracted. And when the timing is right, when the policy papers are signed, the CBDC corridors go live, the trade networks activate, they'll be ready, already plugged in, already scaled, already holding the keys to the new economy. Coming up next, why XRP and XLM were built for this exact moment. In the next section, we'll break down why XRP and XLM are not just ready for institutional adoption, they were literally engineered for it. What BlackRock is about to unleash isn't an entry, it's an activation, and most retail investors have no idea what's coming. XRP and XLM were engineered for this exact moment. Let's drop the illusions. Most crypto assets were never meant to survive regulation. They were created in bedrooms, rushed to market, pumped by hype, and abandoned by utility. But XRP and XLM, they were forged in the fire of a much bigger war. They weren't designed for a bull run. They weren't built to entertain retail. They were built to replace the broken machinery of global finance at the foundational level. And now, in 2025, the moment they were created for is here. XRP, the bridge for value. XRP wasn't created to be another Bitcoin killer. It was created to solve a specific problem: the inefficiency of cross-border payments. We're talking about a system that still runs on 40-year-old Swift rails, where payments take 3 to 5 business days, get delayed by intermediaries, and cost hundreds of billions annually in friction. XRP through RippleNet allows that to happen in seconds. No middlemen, no currency conversions, no delays. Now step back for a moment. Who benefits most from that kind of technology? Banks, institutions, governments, exactly the same players BlackRock already controls. And while XRP's public journey has been rocky, with lawsuits, delistings, and media smears, it has done something almost no crypto ever has: survived, adapted, and remained compliant. Ripple's partnerships now include the Monetary Authority of Singapore, CBDC pilots with over a dozen central banks, settlement corridors from the UAE to South America. And through it all, XRP hasn't just held its ground, it has embedded itself into the future infrastructure. XLM, the other side of the system. While XRP was targeting the high-speed payment corridors, XLM, Stellar, was solving a different problem: access, inclusion, scalability. Built for the underbanked and underserved regions, XLM is the humanitarian and fintech side of the same coin. Partnered with MoneyGram for instant fiat-to-crypto conversion, integrated into United Nations aid delivery systems, piloting cross-border aid programs across Africa and Latin America, backing tokenized assets like stablecoins pegged to local currencies. XLM is the network quietly handling the other 4 billion people who have been left out of the legacy financial game. And guess what? The more the world digitizes money, the more we need fast, compliant, cheap rails that don't rely on traditional infrastructure. Just like XRP, XLM is ISO 20022 compliant, lightweight, and designed to scale. And unlike most projects in crypto, it actually works. Why BlackRock knows this, and you're just finding out. You think BlackRock doesn't know about this? You think the same company that controls the world's largest ETF network, that advises central banks on infrastructure, that shapes legislation behind closed doors, isn't aware that XRP and XLM are the only two digital assets actually aligned with real-world financial rails? They know. That's why they're not rushing in now. They already built the on-ramps. They already own the players. They've been watching these protocols mature through legal battles, regulation, and real-world integration. And now, they're ready to flip the switch. Because the moment a global bank publicly connects to RippleNet, or a UN-backed project pushes aid through Stellar at scale, or stablecoin regulation formally recognizes these assets as legal settlement rails, it's game over. The flood begins. And BlackRock won't be buying in. They'll be turning on systems they've already tested, backed, and structured to scale. When the flood comes, it won't look like a bull run. Next, we'll show you exactly how this plays out. Because once the switch flips, this won't feel like previous cycles. It won't be hype. It won't be noise. It'll be control and capital on a level most retail investors aren't ready for. When the flood comes, it won't look like a bull run. Here's the mistake retail always makes. They expect the next big move to look like the last one. Big candles, viral tweets, sudden pumps, FOMO mania. But that's not what this is. Because BlackRock doesn't move like retail. And this isn't a bull run. It's a takeover. What's coming won't be loud. It won't be obvious. but it will be permanent. The liquidity is already positioned. The capital isn't waiting on the sidelines, it's being rerouted through private investment vehicles, through digital asset trusts, through custody solutions no one's talking about yet. BlackRock isn't exploring the digital asset space. They're embedding themselves in it. And XRP and XLM, they're not on the radar. They're already on the blueprint. Remember, these aren't just digital tokens. They're compliant, scalable, programmable settlement layers built for tokenized finance. They weren't made for hype. They were made for transition. And that transition is already happening. Real infrastructure is quiet until it's not. You won't see this flood coming because real adoption doesn't look like price spikes. It looks like trade finance corridors moving $100 million a week with zero publicity. Central banks testing instant settlements behind closed doors. Asset managers creating wrapped investment products using XRP rails. NGOs running humanitarian aid through Stellar and never mentioning crypto once. By the time the headlines catch up, the positions will already be taken. This is not about getting in before the pump. This is about understanding what it means when capital starts moving across new rails, and the market doesn't even know what happened. BlackRock's playbook is already in motion. They've done this before. In the 90s with ETFs, in the 2000s with mortgages, in 2008 with the collapse and the rebuild. They study the system. They understand where it's breaking. Then they take over the fix. Now look at global finance in 2025. Central banks are preparing for digital currencies. Trade is moving toward tokenized documentation. Settlement systems are being rebuilt for speed, automation, and interoperability. This isn't some theoretical trend. It's a full-spectrum replacement of the pipes and rails that power the global economy. And XRP and XLM are the only digital assets already built to flow through them. The shift won't announce itself. There won't be a warning, because the people who run this system don't want noise. They want control. And BlackRock's greatest weapon is silence followed by sudden dominance. So if you're waiting for a pump to confirm what's coming, you're going to miss it. This isn't about charts. It's about who controls value movement in the next financial system. And when the flood comes, it won't look like hype. It'll look like everything quietly changing, all at once. What triggers the flood, and how close are we? In the final part, we're going to reveal exactly what event, law, or shift could light the fuse, and why, when it happens, there'll be no time left to position. Because the flood is already in the pipes. We're just waiting for the valve to crack open. What triggers the flood, and how close are we? The system is built. The rails are in place. The capital is prepositioned. So what's left? A spark. Because every reallocation, every economic shift begins with a moment, policy, an announcement, a single domino that topples everything behind it. The question isn't if BlackRock unleashes the flood. It's what will trigger it and how close we are to that ignition point. Let's break it down. Trigger 1. Final regulatory clarity. This is the last wall between capital and activation. Right now, XRP has already survived the courtroom. The SEC v. Ripple case exposed just how poorly understood crypto really is by regulators, but also how dangerously close the clarity is to being cemented. The moment XRP is formally declared a non-security, not just in motion, but on the books, BlackRock no longer has to wait. And XLM? Stellar's network is ISO 20022 compliant. It's been used by regulated entities already. All it needs is one regulatory nod, one framework to finalize, and capital can pour in without friction. When regulation gives the green light, everything unlocks. Trigger 2. Tokenized treasuries and real-world asset integration. Here's where things get bigger. BlackRock isn't playing with meme coins. They're building the next financial system around tokenized real-world assets, RWAs, bonds, treasuries, trade documents, invoices, all wrapped in blockchain logic, all requiring instant, compliant, cross-border settlement. Which protocols are ready to handle that? XRP and XLM. Once tokenized asset infrastructure goes live, And banks need scalable rails. They won't build new ones from scratch. They'll plug directly into what already exists. RippleNet, Stellar, rails with real history, regulatory frameworks, and live throughput. The flood begins not when tokens moon, but when banks quietly flip the switch. Trigger 3 institutional use case going public. Right now, institutions are already testing XRP and XLM-based systems, but they're not broadcasting it, not yet. Why? Because once a major bank, asset manager, or global trade corridor publicly confirms they've gone live on these rails, the illusion of too early dies overnight. It only takes one major remittance partner onboarding, one nation launching a digital currency with Ripple's backend, one global aid program running on stellar rails and issuing reports on it. That's the signal. Not hype, not speculation, confirmation, trigger for BlackRock themselves. The final, most obvious spark, BlackRock making it public. They don't need to file an XRP ETF. They don't need a flashy press release. All they need to do is launch a digital asset settlement division, include XRP or XLM infrastructure in a RWA fund, partner with a RippleNet bank or Stellar Connected project, and the market will catch fire. Because if BlackRock gives even a shadow of public confirmation, the dam breaks, billions flood in, and the rest of the world, media, influencers, and retail, will only realize it after the revaluation is underway. So how close are we? Closer than anyone wants to admit. The legislation is in motion. The pilot programs are already running. The institutional interest is already there waiting for cover. And the technology, already built, tested, and ready to scale. We're not years away. We're inches. And when the spark hits, it won't be gradual. It'll be instant, because this isn't a market cycle. This is a financial realignment. And XRP and XLM aren't speculative assets anymore. They're the architecture for what's coming next. You don't buy the flood, you prepare for it. By the time the headlines catch up, by the time your favorite crypto analyst whispers, institutional wave, it'll be too late, because BlackRock doesn't announce its plays. It executes them. And XRP and XLM, they aren't waiting to moon. They're waiting for activation. This isn't a hype cycle. This is a system transfer, and the rails are already live. So don't chase the flood. Be where it lands. Subscribe before this story becomes someone else's profit.